Welcome to the Connected Conversation with Brett Hill, a well-known mindfulness and somatic coach and coach trainer, as he demonstrates the power of mindful communication to change your life, work, and the world. Disconnected is the new normal. People are feeling overdriven, overwhelmed, and disconnected from meaningful conversations. But it doesn't have to be that way. Step into a life that works for you. Flourish and give voice to your natural creativity and purpose as you learn how to connect deeply and authentically with yourself, others, and the world. The Connected Conversation with Brett Hill starts now.
And welcome to this edition of the Connected Conversation. I'm Brett Hill. I'm a mindful somatic coach and coach trainer. And I love talking about mindful communications because that's really what is at the heart of learning how to be more connected to other people in the world, and you can't do that until you are more connected to yourself. There's a saying in my work, it goes along the lines of like, first, to understand other people, you must first understand yourself. Or to connect with other people, you need to be able to connect to yourself. And what does that mean? How connect to yourself? I mean, kind of, are we hardwired that way? And it's true, of course. You can't avoid being connected to yourself in many ways. If you doubt that, then just, drop a glass on your foot and see if you have an immediate response. Yes, you will. However, consider the many times when people maybe make really important decisions and they go, I don't know what I was doing, or that wasn't like me, or I wish I hadn't said that, or what was it that happened there? I don't even know how that happened. There are times when we are disconnected from quote unquote ourselves, or the process of expressing and manifesting ourselves in the world in alignment with who we think we are and what we think should be happening in terms of being the kind of person. You have this idea about, who we are. And when we don't behave that way, it stands out. So there is a interconnection component here that doesn't always work. And you can take this quite a bit farther. You can look deeper to what is actually going on inside of you on a moment-to-moment basis, almost in a very scientific way. It's kind of like if you had the opportunity to kind of view your moment-to-moment thoughts, feelings, sensations, experiences, if they were like visible outside of you, and you were like some alien or some impartial third-person observer, a scientist who's just recording, just taking notes. Oh, there's an angry thought, there's a critical thought, there's a feeling of insecurity, or there's a feeling of love, and just checking the boxes, right? Just going, okay, not making a judgment about them, not like, oh, look, there's an angry thought. Well, this person is really off the hook with all this. Not that, but just like, what is the lay of the land? Think of it like, you enter into a new house and you haven't been there before, or a hotel is a common experience and you don't know what's going to be open. You open the door and you're just objectively looking. What's this like? I don't know what's in here. Let me explore and find out. If you had that kind of an approach to what's actually going on in your inner world, then you're in a place to begin to assess what is it like to be you? And that's a really simple and exceptionally powerful question. What is it like to be you right now? I lead with this question a lot in groups that I work with. Just take a moment, take a breath, pause for a second, and do this right now if you can. Take a second, take a beat. And this is because we are organic machines, organic beings, not machines, but beings. And your chemistry needs a little time to transition. So you may notice that I'm like slowing down my wording. I'm saying things in a different cadence. That's going to slow down the transitions between, let's slow down, process a little bit. and just check in with yourself. What's it like right now to be you? Maybe that's not so fun. Maybe it's like, oh my God, I'm anxious and I'm in my life is on fire and I'm worried about stuff. That's just, remember the scientist's point of view. We're just checking the boxes here. Oh, that's true. That's the way it is for me. You're just noticing. And this is the value of a mindful approach. You're just noticing. You're not making meaning out of, oh my God, it's a train wreck because I have all these critical thoughts. All right. You notice that too. I have a lot of critical thoughts. That's just part of my life. Maybe I'll do something about it, but right now I'm just noticing that is so. Kind of like if you have a flat tire, you don't destroy the car, you just have the flat tire. You go, oh, I've got a flat tire. I'm going to take an action to correct the flat, to fix the flat. And that's something that you want to do. And it doesn't help you to be angry and upset and victimized and pissed off about what didn't happen. As Eckhart Tolle would say, like, connected to a moment that you're not having and wishing you were there. Instead, you're connected to the moment that you are having. Yep, you've got a flat tire and the trees are beautiful and the sky is lovely and the wind feels great. Or whatever's going on. Maybe that's not going on, but whatever is going on is also going on, instead of making your world all about the disaster that just happened to you. All of that fretting will not change the fact of it. Somehow, it's strange, but neurologically or somehow our brains think that if we just worry about it enough, it'll change. And it won't. It'll just wreck your moment. Now, all this is about noticing what's true for you. And I'm making a picture for learning to be somewhat objective about that so that you don't judge it. And I'm going somewhere with this, so that you don't judge it. You can press pause on the meaning. Sometimes I call this, and other people have said this as well, the tyranny of meaning. Like, well, what does that mean? Well, that means what? I don't know what that means. I'm terrible at this paying attention, or the flip is, I'm really great. Those are all fine. But that's not what this exercise is about. It's just noticing. Now, when you practice this for a little while, you'll begin to, it's powerful. This is a really powerful skill. And it is a skill. It's something you can develop. Because what you find you'll be able to do is you'll also automatically, just by itself, be able to notice other people in a different way. Oh, they're angry. Oh, they're unhappy. Oh, they're sad. And because you've been practicing this non-judgmental part, you're just going, oh, instead of judging them, oh, they're angry. I'll bet that they're just, mean to their dog and they're unhappy people and they don't have any relationship, making up a story about it, where you don't know. I mean, those things might be true, but you don't know often. Just pressing pause on that, going, all I know is that the way that they're presenting right now, tone of voice, the color of the skin, the posture, the nonverbal, that's anger. So for whatever is going on in them, they are experiencing and expressing anger. And then you can notice, what's it like for me to be in the presence of someone who's angry? And a lot of us is a pretty powerful experience. You're backing up emotionally, maybe even physically, and maybe rightly so. I want some distance here. I personally don't do well with anger. I don't like being around people when they're really angry. I don't manage it well. I've seen some therapists and other people in group sessions just do brilliantly with it, but I'm not that guy. So when my coaching, it's like, if the anger piece is a big piece, I'm probably not the coach for you. And that doesn't mean that there's anything wrong with you at all. It's just me, right? So it's like, but I know that about myself, right? Because I can observe my own overreaction And so I'm not saying yes to people whom I can't serve as well as I could. There are better coaches for them, and they would be better served to go to them. So that's just me noticing what I have an affinity for and struggle with, and then aligning my practice to align with that, so that way I can be in integrity and I can set up the conditions that are for the best possible conditions for success with people that I engage with, formally, professionally, or informally. Okay, so that's the beginnings of how you begin to look inside to connect to yourself so you can connect to other people. Now, what can happen next is really very interesting. Once you create this a little bit of spaciousness, because what happens when you begin to take on this more objective point of view, and I want to be clear, I'm not talking about taking the heart out of things. If you have a big heart experience when you're doing this, then that's amazing and great. That is also something that you notice. Oh man, I'm noticing I really have a lot of emotion around this, around this person. I have a habit, a practice. I'm not going to necessarily say you should do this, but I'll say that I have been doing it for probably a decade now, and it's a very interesting practice. If I like somebody, I tell them, and I tell them pretty early. And it has an odd effect on people. Sometimes I'm trying to figure out the boundaries of this thing because, I do it in scenarios where I maybe have just met somebody and I've only been talking to them for a minute or two. And I'll say it, but I'll notice that something in me just really is appreciating. And it's one of those things where you think, yeah, I'd really like to hang out with this person. There's something in you that's going, here's a friend. Effectively, this is someone who's, and then there's this almost this sense of I want to be more connected. I want to go deeper. I want to have more of these rich moments with this person. There's a sense of potential, and I don't know exactly how to describe it, but there's this sense of togetherness and resonance is a better word that you can have with someone, and it kind of comes from nowhere, and you don't really know, and you don't really have the intellectual justification for it. Perhaps intuition is another way to talk about it. And when that's the case with somebody, and I notice it, I'll let them know. I'll say, I don't know why, but I have this. I have a practice whenever I meet somebody and I like them, I let them know. I just want to say, for whatever reason, I just like you as a person, and then I'll just be very carefully observed, and I can see most people are pretty surprised by that because most people you don't hear that from people very often, and you can see sometimes that lands really well. And people go, "Oh, well, that's really great. I feel the same way," or "Oh, well, thank you." And I'm not looking for, I don't need reciprocity there. I'm not doing it to get something. I'm doing it just to name the truth of my experience and be aware of what happens. And we'll talk some more about what that means to name the truth of your experience and being connected to your experience in a way that gives you the opportunity to have more connected conversations. We'll talk more after the break. Hello, this is Brett Hill with the Connected Conversation, and welcome back. We are talking about connected conversations, and we're talking about how to get in touch with what's going on for you in such a way that it helps you connect to other people in a deeper and more authentic way. This is so powerful, these techniques and practices that I talk about on the show, because they really, really, truly can alter the course of your life. Sometimes I say in my work, imagine every conversation in your life going better. Think about that for a minute. Every conversation that you will ever have in your life. Now, if it's on a quality scale, if it's at a 5 or 6, dial it up to a 7 or 8. Or if it's a 3 or 4, dial it up to a 5 or 6. How much more opportunity would that create for you? How much more satisfaction would that create for you? How much more joy, peace, love, excitement, engagement, relational, satisfaction would that bring to you? And not to mention in business. The kinds of things that I'm talking about are exceptionally effective in business as well. But that's probably another conversation. I want to focus back on the inner awareness of the self, because we talked about paying attention to what's going on in you in an objective way, in a way where you are able to name what's happening. And that's really powerful, by the way. It's really important to name what's happening, not just go, oh, something's happening, but to name it. Oh, that's a voice in my head that says, be afraid, or look out, or don't go across the street, or whatever it is. And I say that, don't go across the street, because I had a client once who showed up in my work because she was really afraid to take to speak up for herself or to engage in anything that she was enthusiastic. She started to get enthusiastic, and then suddenly she'd have this fear come up. No, I can't do that. It's not okay. And so we started to explore that. And what we found is that as a child, her parents had been really protective of her physically, in the sense that it was not okay for her to step on the sidewalk. She could not step on the sidewalk. And if she did, all fury came down on her head about, how unsafe it is and how at risk she is. And, you can just imagine, here's a little child playing around. Yay, I'm having fun, playing with the ball, do whatever she's doing. And she steps on the sidewalk, and just out of the blue, here come angry parents, going, no, that's not okay. You can't do that. Well, what happens to a little child is they begin to associate their passion, they're following their excitement, following their moment, following their enticement with this oppressive force that comes in from the outside. Those things get wired up neurologically. And so so that happened enough to her that later on in life, anytime she felt like she wanted to go with something she was enjoying, here came this big oppressive feeling like, oh no, it's not okay. And once that came into her awareness, that's where she had learned that was the key that allowed her to name the experience, notice it, name it, and then authorize herself to proceed, even though she was having these feelings, because those feelings weren't really associated with what was happening now. They were just memories. They were just memories. And that's the way a lot of what goes on for us works. A lot of memories, nervous system, and memories are just neural networks in the brain that are wired up to a certain experience. Now, I want to say that because when we are working with other people, when you're connecting or you're wanting to practice connecting with other people, you're going to have things come up. And so paying attention to those things is just like noticing, oh, I'm having these feelings like I like you, like I mentioned before, or I don't like you, which is okay. Just notice it and name it. Or I'm feeling like I want to say this or go this way. But if you get into this space where you're noticing an interesting thing happens, you begin to feel more spacious inside. If you were to listen to a meditation for just 10 minutes, or just listen to a waterfall, or look at the sky for just 5 or 10 minutes, you'll start to feel more spacious inside. It's like a snow globe when you shake them up, and all the debris is falling around the snow, the little bits of glitter or snow. And then you stop, and after a while, it just begins to settle, and you can see the pretty scene. That's the way our brains are. They're like overdriving most of the time, because the culture that we're in is designed to overdrive and overstimulate. That's what it's intended to do. And that's why we're so overstimulated that things have to work really, really hard to get your attention. That's why every headline is a hook. They literally teach writing hooks for headlines. And you can pay thousands of dollars to, this guy is the hook master, or this woman, she knows how to create these hooky headlines that'll grab anybody's attention. And you're scrolling through your feed, and every headline is a hook. Well, that has an impact on your nervous system. And that impact is to disconnect us from ourselves because we're still reverberating from the impact of having 1,000 hooks a minute come into your system. You can say that you're just flipping by them, but they're going in and you are having to deal with them. It's just happening in a subconscious way. Your nervous system spends most of its time filtering out things that you don't need to pay attention to, so that the things that you do need to pay attention to rise to the level of awareness. Like, are you aware right this moment of, not before I say it, but after I say it, like the feeling of the clothes that you're wearing on your skin? Generally, people aren't aware of that unless it's irritating. That's one of the things that just goes into the background. But you do have a feeling there, because the moment I say that, you're going to sense into it, go, yeah, that's there. Because it's like the famous "don't think of an elephant." You can't tell somebody not to think of something and then have them not think of it. The point being that anything that you read, see, hear, or touch goes into your nervous system and must then be processed. So the question I'm going to ask you is, given that all this is going on, how do you then organize? Because this is all going somewhere that's very, very important. How do you then organize about who you want to be in a way to engage the world from the place of best possible outcomes? So I'm talking very scientifically about kind of a very non-scientific thing. And what I want to talk about for most of the rest of the show is a thing called loving presence. Now, loving presence is, what the heck is that? Well, I'm just going to invite you to think about a time when you were talking with someone and you had a kind of a visceral experience that they cared about you. And maybe this is a romantic partner, maybe this is a parent, maybe this is somebody that you're close to. But a better one for this particular example is whenever you have somebody in your life, maybe a teacher, for example, who you feel like they have inherently in their body and in their mind and in their heart and in their voice and in their actions and words and deeds, a way of being, a manner of engaging with you where you felt like, bottom line, uncomplicated, they just simply cared about you. And they didn't judge you. They were just being there for you. They're just, you ever heard the term holding space for somebody? They're not trying to fix you. They're just there for you. Have you ever had an experience like that? A lot of people have. And they kind of stand out. And if not, then it's possible. This is the beginning of a very important conversation about a way to be in the world in a way where many of the things I've been talking about just sort of automatically unfold. When you engage from within a place within yourself where you are connected to a source of loving presence within yourself first, then when you engage with other people from that place, really powerful things happen. This is what I call a foundational practice. Now, foundational practice is something that is exceptionally important and is something I learned about a while back. The thing about a foundational practice is that if you committed your entire life to mastering this one thing, you would, in fact, become a master of life through that one thing. It's a practice in which everything is embedded. And by that, all the important mysteries and wisdom of the world is embedded within this one thing. And there are a few of them, but this is the one of those. If you did nothing but say, okay, Brett, I hear you. I'm going to commit my entire life to becoming a loving presence, then your life would be well spent. and you would have the impact of many, many, many blessings bestowed upon the world and those that you meet, because your mere presence is a blessing in that case. I'm big on blessings. Your mere presence as a loving presence is a blessing to everything you encounter, because what you're connecting to is not, I'm going to bowl you over with this powerful feeling of love that's manifesting. It's not that. That's ego. That's, I am so powerful that you're going to feel me. Not that. It's more like quietly walking with the power of a radiant sun inside you. And it simply is an emanating force that has no intent but to manifest. And we'll talk some more about that when we come back from the break. Hello, welcome back to the Connected Conversation. I'm your host, Brett Hill. I'm a mindful somatic coach and coach trainer. You can find out more about me at themindfulcoach.com, themindfulcoach.com. I also am the founder of the Mindful Coach Association. So if you're a coach or someone who's helping other people professionally, one-on-one or one-on group, and you value mindfulness in your work, the Mindful Coach Association is free to join, and we have a great time in our weekly community meetings at mindfulcoachassociation.com. So check that out. And maybe I can see you. I'll join you in the meeting. I lead a meeting every week. It's a really fabulous experience. We have some incredible, courageous, powerful, talented coaches show up, and we just talk shop about what's it like to be a coach in the world today. So there's no marketing. It's not a big mastermind. I don't lecture. We just get to know each other and have a fabulous time. And the other thing that I do is I'm a coach trainer, and I teach the Mindful Coach Method, which is an incredibly powerful 8-week experience for coaches at themindfulcoachmethod.com, themindfulcoachmethod.com. Extremely powerful way to amplify your coaching in-session mindfulness and presence, to sustain the presence, and these somatic skills that help you really elevate your work and get deeper, faster with clients. There's a lot to say about that, but it takes a while to kind of go over all the things I have in mind. I'm kind of like I've got a lot going on, and I enjoy it that way because I'm passionate about this message. And this particular podcast, The Connected Conversation, is really, really at the heart of what drives a lot of this. And this particular episode is really at the core of it. We're talking about loving presence. We're talking about developing the capacity to be a loving presence in the world in such a way that when you meet people, you're not judging them or figuring out their utility or wanting much from them. You're merely a loving presence. Now, that's a very lofty thing to say and very hard to do, actually, because we have these associations with people from our past who and we have a story about, well, I'm an empath and I feel like everybody runs over me and I can't handle everybody's emotions, or I never get a good deal, or I'm privileged and everybody needs to do what I say or else the world isn't right. And if you're in my way, then you're just an obstacle. I'm going to sweep you aside. Whatever your story is, it's just a story. You're not born that way. You learn these things, right? So sometimes I just go back to, well, do you think you were born this way? And people go, well, no. And so, okay, so how did you learn that this was so? And so developing some capacity to understand that, there are some native things, and by that I mean inherently organic, you are born with, kind of almost like soul level stuff. But then there's the adapted material that you come to learn, this transient woundedness that we all have that gets into our systems and becomes our worldview so inherently that we don't even see it anymore. The only way you begin to see it is by doing the work I'm talking about, where you stop and you look back and you go, oh, you look inside, you go, oh, this is what my role is like. Sometimes it can come from the outside in. Someone can just say, well, you're really angry all the time. I once had a guy tell me, this is one of the kindest things anyone ever said to me when I was 20 something. He said, Brett, you're one of the most reactive people that I know. And I thought, oh my, because I didn't realize that was so, and I trusted this guy. So it's like, oh, wow. So I had to do a reset and really start to watch myself. Really valuable feedback that had an impact on me and let me see something that I couldn't see. So sometimes it's necessary to take these outside reflections and evaluate, is this so? And if 25 people are telling you that you're angry, that's a clue. If 25 people are telling you that you're a loving, caring person, that's a clue. Now, you don't want to wear it like a badge, but here's what you can do. You can own it. You can own it. I want to take a breath here, and I want to say this very powerfully, if possible. You will find peace when you own the truth of who you are. Not only that, you will find power when you own the truth of who you are. Now, some of those truths might be unpleasant, like I'm a hurt person, I'm a wounded person, I'm a victimized person. That's a truth for a lot of people. And but you will not find a way to be in the world that isn't under the weight of that until you acknowledge the truth of that. If you're trying to live your world in a way where you feel like that's not so, and it is, you are fighting against reality. And you will not win. You will not win that struggle. The truth will make itself known. So the question is, what is so? And I'm trying to make a statement here that if you really align with this and you really get in touch with what's really true for you and who you really are, you create this spaciousness, something really phenomenal can happen. You can begin to notice your native caring, your inherent caring. Now, I have sort of a metaphysical woo-woo belief that love is an abundant supply. It's not something that someone gives me. It's actually the thing that animates the world and all of creation. Now, because I have that as a core belief, and I had come to that honestly through direct experience, which is another conversation, then something interesting happens. I'm going to give you an assignment, and if you connect with me, I can actually send you this. I'll put this on the website connectedconversation.com if anyone's interested. The connectedconversation.com. I'm going to put a meditation there, and this meditation is really super powerful. And it's based on the notion that there is an abundance of love in the world. And so if that's the truth, if there is an unending supply of love, then the question I have to you is, well, then how much will I allow myself to have? How much love will I let myself feel? That's really an important question. How much love will you let yourself feel? Most people have a lot of barriers around that, strangely enough. And the only way you'll ever find out is if you begin to explore that question in a non-trivial way, and I mean a serious way. And so you can do that in a meditation. You can sit down and you can say, okay, imagine that I'm literally living in a sea of love. How much of that do I let in. It's almost like how much air can you take in? We're living there's plenty of air on the planet. You can argue about the quality of it, but there's plenty of air, right? And there's enough for you. But sometimes we walk around like, oh, there's not enough love in the world, like there's not enough air in the world. But there is. So the question is, how much do you permit? And if you were to adopt a practice of, I am going to empower, enable, permit, allow, subscribe to, adopt a stance of anything, any statement along the lines of, I'm on a mission to let myself feel as much love as I can in this moment. And it's not dependent on anything. It's not like that person has to give it to you any more than the sun has to have permission to shine on you. Or you just step outside and the sun is a radiant force. It's giving its light away to anyone who is in its reach. And love is like that. If you find a place in you where you can be still long enough, notice who you are in this naming way so that the objections can be, oh, you can't do that because of this. Oh, it's not okay for just noticing and naming all those things that come up to prevent you from feeling those things. And just say, well, what happens if I just lean into letting myself feel love as a radiant force within me? And you will find there is something there that you can allow and becomes a matter of allow. Another way is surrender. You can surrender into the arms of love, if you will, because it's bigger than you. It's like the sea. And practices like this are like laying on the ground and surrendering to the earth, letting the earth hold you up. I once had that as an assignment to my therapist, a really brilliant one. Go lay on the ground and let the earth hold you and know that it always will. It'll never fail. Letting the water, if you can float or be on a raft, letting the water hold you and support you. Letting yourself surrender to the vast, limitless supply of love. And what you'll find is that is actually the manifestation of now. Really, we're getting deep into it now. But that is truly the manifestation of creation itself. And we live right at the cusp of that all the time. And when you engage the world from that place, everything changes. That would be a connected conversation. We'll come back after the break. Welcome back to the Connected Conversation. I'm your host, Brett Hill, mindful somatic coach and coach trainer, and the creator of the Mindful Coach Method, as well as founder of the Mindful Coach Association. I'm talking about something really important to me, and this goes deep. We've been talking about loving presence as a practice, as a mission in your life. Because in the end, this is kind of like what everybody wants more of in the world. This is what we're all missing in some ways. It's like, well, if only they would treat me with respect. If only I had a job where I felt like I was a human. If only, I had more people in my life that were kind to me. All of it is the absence, is manifest because of the absence of loving presence in people that you're engaging with, and maybe even in, us. It's like sometimes that's the problem as well. And so the solution, if there is a solution, an orientation, a way to relate to this scenario is to become, as much as you can, and this, you could almost say it's a spiritual practice in a lot of ways, to be simply a loving presence. This was, to invoke Christ. This is what Christ's message was, right? Being a a loving presence on the planet. Certainly he was, the story is, he was the manifestation of that. As were most all spiritual teachers that are well known and recorded. It's one of the gifts of spirit. Andrew Harvey, who I'm a big fan of Andrew Harvey, you should look him up if you don't know about him, talks about the gifts of spirit. And this is, one of them, like to be a loving presence. Being a loving presence is not a loud, boisterous thing. It's something that you simply are. And so, your loving presence is compassionate to the people that you meet. And so one of the things, this leads us to some practices, which I want to get in before before we're done with the show. When you're meeting somebody and you're talking with them, pay attention to, and in my lingo, it would be like tracking, to track the state of your own connectedness to loving presence. Like, do you feel like you're in a state of loving presence with this person? I'm not, and not in a judgmental way, not like, oh, I'm so out of, I'm so not, I'm so whatever. That's fine. Just notice and name it, like we said before. Notice, name, oh no, I'm really not there. And then see if you can develop through these meditations or other practices the capacity to just touch base with it. Like, oh, okay, where's my heart? Where's my feeling in all this? Because your feelings, your capacity to be in touch with loving presence has nothing to do with the person that you're talking to or the experiences that you're going on in life. You can be in that state no matter what, even under extremely adverse scenarios. And that's kind of a white glove throw down moment, like throwing the gauntlet down. What? How can you say that? There are people out there who are suffering. And it's true. And I don't mean to diminish it in any way, the suffering and the difficulty that people have, and the righteousness of standing up against injustice, and that's perfectly legit in my mind. But I just am taken to, like, Nelson Mandela, for example, who, one of my favorite stories is, how he was in jail and being tortured, and his biggest concern was he would hate his jailers. He would grow to hate his jailers. That is loving presence. Didn't make them right. And it wasn't like, this isn't an injustice. It's about, I'm going to manage the state that I am in. My quality of my experience in the world is up to me, not what's outside of me. Or you have the flat tire, you can rail about the flat tire, or you can say, no, I'm just going to enjoy my moment, even in the face of these adversities, because these don't define me. They are just things that are happening. And you want to take actions. It's not like it's okay. It's not like it's okay that Nelson Mandela was jailed. You don't go, oh, I'm going to forgive you so I can be in peaceful bliss. It's not that so much as it is, what's my moment like? And yeah, I want to take an action to correct this injustice whenever those moments present themselves. And maybe you take forceful action for those moments to present themselves. So the practice then is to just develop this fairly constant sort of awareness of, what is my state now? And breathing into, particularly when you're talking to somebody, develop a practice of almost pulling back. I call this in my work, I call it zooming out and assessing, what is my state of experience with this person? I'm nervous, I'm upset, I'm unhappy. Okay, naming that. And then noticing them in a kind of an objective way too. Like, oh, I can see that this person is pretty unhappy, angry, irritated, wounded. Because one of the things that you develop a capacity to do is to appreciate the fact that other people are very, very wounded. And when they act badly, they're generally acting out of their own woundedness. They're trying to get through the world in an ungraceful, sometimes maybe even aggressive way, because that's what's worked for them in the past, and they're trying it now. And it's not working that well for you in the moment. But it's only because they are an unintegrated human being who's had all kinds of difficulties in the world. And this is the way that they're showing up. Behind all of that, there's someone who's just like you, who's connected to a world of possibilities and wants things to be good for themselves and for others. Now, that's maybe a stretch, but I believe that to my core. And consequently, when other people are misbehaving, I'm able to be a lot more objective about what's going on rather than reactive and connected to the possibility of our common humanity being more powerful than our problem. It's really important that the power of our common humanity is more powerful than our problem, but not unless you're connected to that. And when you see the heart, the soul, the history, the genealogy, the gifts, the struggles, the ambitions, the hopes, the fears, the challenges, the weights that another person is carrying, the moment they show up in your world, and you can do that because it's right there to see. You just have to be present for it. When you see all of that, and then somebody says something that's ungraceful or challenging, you realize it's coming from a complicated, involved scenario in them, and there's a person in there who doesn't want it to be that way. And if you connect to who they really are versus who they are showing up as, and you speak to your problem that you're having from that place, it changes the frame in such a way that a different conversation can happen. And so you wind up saying things to people like, I care about this relationship, and I would like for this conversation to go differently. Or you have to draw clear boundaries. So I care about what we're doing here. I care about you. If you do, only if that's authentic. But it's necessary that we treat each other respectfully, or I can't be in this conversation. It's just a requirement of the way I do relationships. If we can't talk respectfully, we can't talk, but it doesn't mean I don't care. It changes everything. You can see how that works. And that's what I mean by now you're in your power. Now you're in the truth of the core of what's true for you. This is what I call voicing your embodied authority. And there's no more authority in the world, no more potent, powerful authority than being connected to an authentic, radiant source of living presence in your moment-to-moment engagement in the world. And that is how you can create connected conversations for the rest of your life, and also with yourself. Can connect to everything. So in the end, it's always about noticing, what am I connected to? Anger, fear, going back, and no judgment there, just noticing, what am I connected to? And so my wish to you is that you can find a way to allow yourself to have more love and own it, and know that that is not just something you're connected to, it is you. Thank you.
Thank you for joining us today on The Connected Conversation with Brett Hill on TransformationTalkRadio.com. Tune in next time to experience the power of mindful communication to bring deeper meaning to your life, work, and the world. Brett is here to help you step into a life that works for you, to help you flourish and give voice to your natural creativity and purpose. See you here next time on The Connected Conversation to learn how to enjoy the experience of your moment-to-moment life. For more information, visit theconnectedconversation.com.